Look at that, we went back in time to June of 2020. The good old days when... Well, actually, no, June of 2020 is literally indistinguishable from May of 2021. We still got COVID, we're still waiting for Black Widow to come out, and Elden Ring and Hollow Knight Silksong still don't have a release date, so, like... Did the last 11 months even happen? Cue the PS5 trailer for Little Devil Inside, a game that was on Kickstarter like 6 years ago and almost feels like it had been in development limbo for a while, and then all of a sudden it gets this ridiculously awesome looking trailer and reveals its ties to PlayStation. Everyone seems interested. It's my favorite game showcased in the whole event, and it's an event that included Returnal, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Horizon Forbidden West, Kena Bridge of Spirits, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. That was an incredible game showcase, easily one of the best I've seen, and somehow I'm most excited for this game I've never heard of from a new development team. And there I am, sitting hoping for a release date soon, and yeah, we're almost a year past that point and have no new information. I'm convinced time just started standing still at a certain point. Indie games have started to really pick up in the past few years, and it feels like so many of the most popular ones and even a lot of the less mainstream ones are incredibly distinctive from one another, even if they have similar genres or ideas. The indie space works so different to the AAA space because in AAA, you want to give the people what they want. You want to stick to at least somewhat of a proven structure because most of the biggest games in the world are based on that structure and formula, and there are obviously examples that break that mold, but so often we get a cluster of games that heavily overlap one another since they all start at the same point and shuffle their feet slightly to the side. Indie games are the exact opposite. You don't have the tools, man hours, personnel, and often the experience to follow that formula, and even if you did, chances are you don't want to. If you're making independent games, suffice it to say you're probably looking to get creative. Instead of trying to fit in, a successful and universally praised indie game needs to stand out, and the more you stand out, the more chance your game has to be considered a classic in just a few short years. Obviously with the caveat that your game is actually well made. Hollow Knight just came out 4 years ago, and it's already viewed as a hallmark of indie excellence, and in a few years games like Cuphead and Hades will no doubt join its company. Hollow Knight brought in an instantly recognizable, new and polished art style mixed with a deeply sad world. Hades brought the underworld to life and gave incredibly rich dialogue and interactions to dozens of prominent characters from Greek mythos. And Cuphead decided to emulate and recreate a long obsolete animation style into a genre that had never seen anything like it. The second you see these games, not only do you immediately know what they are, but you get a sense of their identity just through a still image. I love Hyper Light Drifter, and I think it's an incredible experience, but I think there's a reason why it's usually thought of by both me and the general public to be just one tier below those other games. It has splashes of a unique and entrancing art style, but more often than not, it tends to look pretty similar to games we've seen before with a small twist. And there's no issue with that, obviously, but I do think it shows how much a true sense of unique identity helps an indie game thrive. Take out the gameplay and each of these upper tier indies could be something entirely different. Hades could easily have been a graphic novel. Cuphead feels like it could truly have been an old 20s cartoon. Hollow Knight has the makings of a somber animated short film, and I think Little Devil Inside's landscapes could easily be converted into a series of minimalist paintings. They're beautiful, haunting, barren, hollow, full of life. Just like with the previous examples, every image of this game is recognizable, and it invokes emotions and heavy appreciation from the viewer. Locations are incredibly diverse. You have frozen tundras, a desolate desert, a marsh, and a forest among many, many others, but they still share in their minimalist approach, their focus on lighting and the utilization of empty space, and of course, their character and enemy designs, which all have this half clay, half origami look to them, with sharp edges and short lines in the place of curves, and an inconsistency in sizes that make the tiniest decisions seem stylish and goofy at the same time, like how this boat seems like it's way more squished than it should be, but it makes the scene seem so much more interesting, or the fact that a giant evil cat creature exists and it's like 400 stories tall. Everything looks so different, but it also feels like it all belongs in the same world, and a similar idea I think is being teased with the tone of this game. We can see from the pre-alpha footage that was released way before the Sony showcase trailer that the game has plenty of preparation and an emphasis on making sure you're taking care of yourself, much like you would need to do in a survival game. I mean, you can cut down cacti in the desert and take water from them. Is that not just the most genius thing you've ever seen? Plus, it really seems like you're gonna have to be trekking everywhere and there's gigantic scary monsters to fight, but the thing is, through its animation, music, and concepts, we also seem to be getting a game that is not afraid to be fun and goofy. The trailer had some fun tonal shifts in it, and every so often in the gameplay, we also get something that makes me grin from ear to ear. Be it trying to track down this tiny pig and then immediately cutting to our protagonist running away in over-the-top fear while the little pig is squirming in his hand, or the stupid looking approach that these sharks make when they try to attack you, or their frantic fleeing when they see you killing off their friends, or the fact that you can surf like a goddamn toucan desert penguin, like what? And then 1 second later, I'm mesmerized by the atmospheric fight with this werewolf creature, or feel excited seeing this amazing finisher attack on the floppy shark people. Little Devil Inside doesn't seem like a game that'll fade into the background. It seems like its goal is to make you aware of its presence at all times, through visuals, animations, design decisions, survival elements, enemy types, location changes, anything. And that ever-presentness is cleverly clashed with its emphasis on minimalism, which makes it seem like it'll be calm, frantic, peaceful, and electric all at once. Even though it's hard to tell how well a game is going to play just from looking at it, there are usually clues that tip us off to whether a game's combat is going to hit or not. And from what I've seen from this game, especially from the recent trailer, it seems like it's going to be taking combat very seriously despite its silly exterior. Combat seems very inspired by the Soulsborne games, both Dark Souls and Bloodborne, with a sword, a shield, and a gun as your tools, and what appears to be a parry and riposte system. I'll admit that previous builds of the game do seem a bit floaty or not as impactful, but from everything from the characters to the movement to the full-on combat, more recent footage seems to show that these elements have been trending upwards, with the biggest showcase of just how impactful the combat seems to have become being this section in the trailer right here. We see our character pull back and put all of his might into an attack, which he then uses to fling an enemy into another one. Not only is that a cool ass move, and other gameplay sections have shown that you'll be given fun moves and interesting finishers to play with on top of the basic sword combat, but this is also a great showcase of how to make an attack feel powerful. Our character uses his whole body to pull off both moves, and before the second part, he hesitates in preparation before throwing the enemy. A lot like how you might pause and then quickly put your full force into pushing a heavy object in real life. Through animation alone, this seems like such a thoroughly satisfying combat system, and you can see again how using effects and animation can enhance the combat when this enemy rushes into your shield. There's a sonic boom effect, and then the amount that both you and the enemy are propelled backwards seems pretty reasonable based on the size and preparedness of each respective character. And while you probably won't be actively thinking about any of this stuff when you're actually playing the game, it will absolutely have an effect on how good the gameplay feels. The trailer also seems to hint at the fact that your little dude will be given a whole bunch of traps, gadgets, and other alternative options to combat, and that's always welcome. I'd love to be given the option to be able to trap and deal damage to larger enemies, maybe figure out weaknesses and plan accordingly, maybe even sneak around fights if I want to, although knowing me, I'll probably never do any of that, and I'll just charge head on into something and rely on just my sword and my gun to get me through the fight. What can I say? You don't mess with Old Reliable. I cannot wait for Little Devil Inside. From its combat to its look to its humor and its monsters, I can't find a single thing that doesn't look amazing. The only way I see this game turning out bad is if the developers end up biting off a bit more than they can chew. But they seem to be taking their time in development and are now backed financially by a big company, one that, according to a recent interview, basically begged to be able to work out a deal for this game, and had enough confidence in the product to place it in a jam-packed showcase meant to kickstart their entire next generation, that I just don't think any type of critical failure is imminent. I truly believe that this game has the makings of a masterpiece, and I hope I don't swallow my words in the future, but I can't help but to be really excited. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. For more insights into indie games specifically, check out the playlist I have on this Indie Spotlight / Outlook series, and if you enjoyed listening to me ramble about a game for 10 minutes or so, you're in luck, because I talk about a lot of games all the time, not just indie titles, but a whole bunch of other bigger games as well. So if that sounds interesting to you, subscribe, head over to the channel, and see if something catches your eye, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.